Hey everybody, Riot Mort here, back with the patch 13.3 rundown, and today I'm joined by a special guest. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Alex. I am the product lead for TFT gameplay, so I work really closely with Mort on all things in game.
Nice. Well, glad you could join us. It's been a while since we've had a full patch. We've had a bunch of changes ready to go for a while, but now we're here with a full patch. Some big stuff. Not too big though, because honestly, the balance is in a pretty good state. So, Alex, what were kind of the goals for this patch?
Yeah, honestly, I think the goals were just kind of, bringing up some of that lower stuff, getting in some bigger system changes that we'll chat about. But honestly, agree. Like, we're actually in a pretty good state, which is nice considering how crazy internally it's been the past month or so.
Awesome. Well, let's dive right into it. The first change is that we've done a pass on the item tooltips. So they've been reformatted so that they're easier to read, mostly done by taking the bonus stats and just putting them in the top of the tooltip, as well as organizing those top stats so they're always in the same order. You can see an example here with Infinity Edge, but we applied this to every item, and so hopefully this should be, especially for newer players, make items easier to read and digest.
Yeah, I'm actually super excited for this change. I think, the engaged players that are watching these videos sometimes forget just how much information we throw at players, especially when they're trying to learn a new set or trying out for the first time. So, when you can take these little things and make improvements, it makes such a big difference for, just for them to be like, I just want to enjoy the set and play their favorite champ. It makes that so much easier of a path.
Yeah, cool. All right, on to the big change, and there's a lot to talk about with this one. Basically, with the hero augments now, you used to have one reroll that you shared between all your augments. Now you will have 4 hero augment rerolls if a hero augment appears, and that's separate from your one normal reroll that you can use on normal augments. This is a very large change that's going to change kind of your relationship with hero augments. Alex, do you want to talk a little bit about why we're making this change?
Yeah. I mean, do you want to chat about like how we first mentioned this to each other? What like 2 weeks ago more or something? And
Yeah.
it was kind of like that could be good for the mid set kind of video. I don't remember who you said brought it up to you originally. We were like, yeah, that might be good for the mid set. And then you
Yep.
pinged me Monday and you were like, but what about 13.3? And I was like, let me think about it. And but I mean, in moments I was like, yeah, let's do it. Like I just knew it was the right call. And I'll let you go more into the design
Yeah.
side. But on my side, it was just like when we're building these systems and all this for the game, like we have such a huge swath of players that we're trying to think about. And I think if I remember correctly, and correct me more, but when we were first thinking of hero augments, it was like, let's have players have all the opportunities in the world to go on whatever path they want. But we quickly realized that, like, of course some players love that, but there was tons of players that you can only have time for two games a day and you really want to play, Viego or MF who's on the screen. It's like feels really bad when you have that time and you're like, crap, I'm stuck playing, Vel'Koz or whomever. So I think this will really help open up a ton of new opportunities for those players as well.
Yeah, the big thing here is we really want players that don't have a ton of time to be able to try something they're really interested in trying. Not everybody wants to play Galio carry hero augment, and so being forced to use 40 minutes of your time to do that, not really something we're interested in. And then in the later stages, this should help everyone kind of get a hero augment that really fits their comp and should lead to generally more powerful comps overall. And hopefully, what this will do is put the onus on us to make sure that they're balanced. If one augment is way too strong, that's clearly going to create an unhealthy situation. But we're late enough in the set that we're feeling pretty good about that shouldn't be the case. And we will continue, as you'll see through the rest of this patch, to put a big focus on augment balance. So you'll see that throughout.
Yeah, I think that was pretty much one of my first responses to you was like, okay, if we're going to do this, we need to do a pass of the hero augments along with this to make sure that feels good. But do you want to touch on, I think the big question that most players have is like, why four? I think
Ah,
that's the one question I saw most. So we should probably touch on that.
sure, yeah. So why four? Basically, it came down to we can't go more than four because if it's ever a 5-5-5 hero augment, there's only 15, or excuse me, 16 choices.
Yep.
And so if we show you 15, that's basically it. Um, Now, so then the question is, why one, two, three, or four? And we also tried what would happen if it was one tailored and then random after. But basically, it made the difference between hitting and not hitting really bad. Knowing that somebody else managed to get their perfect augment with maybe their 2 rerolls but you used your 2 rerolls and didn't hit your perfect augment, made that gap feel really catastrophic. And so we're really leaning into with 4 rerolls specifically, so we want you to hit the thing you're after. If you're building a comp, let's say you're building an admin Soraka comp and you're like, man, I'm ready for that Soraka carry augment, great. But if you're in the same position and you're like, I really need a strong frontliner, I want Zac carry, great. Try to chase these things and really build after it. And knowing that everyone has that power sort of creates that inherent balance. And so this will be up to you to really make the choice. Even in a Viego comp, do you want the carry or do you want the support? That's up to you. So
Yeah, I mean, even when we were running through them together more, like I was kind of surprised how often it took me to that fourth roll to get the one that I really, really wanted.
yep.
And even then, I was tempted along the way to take a couple other ones that I've been like, this is fine. So yeah, I think it's going to feel really good for players. I think the one I'm most excited about is 2-1. I think especially
Yep.
for those casual players that they're picking the Annie, but they don't, maybe not know how to get the Annie out of the comp or just keep in that in game. Hopefully they have something they're excited about for that in-game board and feel that flexibility to go in whatever direction they want to go down.
Yep. So yeah, give it a try. Let us know what you think, but definitely the biggest change coming this patch. Cool. All right, on the traits side, I'm going to run through these pretty quickly here. The admin threshold was really hard to use, so we're going to make that easier to use. Procs at 66% instead of 40%. Gadgeting, this is probably the other big rework here, because Gadgeting 5 basically hasn't worked as a trait. Its stats are terrible, nobody plays it. You play Gadgeting 3 in the early game, but you get out of it. So Gadgeting's getting a very big buff here, where they now gain a % damage and damage reduction for each item slot that's filled. So to be clear, if you have 2 full items in a component, that counts as 3. It's how many of your slots are filled. Thieves' Gloves counts as all 3 slots. So if you want to put Thieves' Gloves on Gadgeting, that can be good. If you have 3 Gadgeting, then you're getting 3% damage reduction for each damage reduction and damage done for each slot. But 5 Gadgeting can now be upwards of 12% per slot. So imagine a 5 Gadgeting Nunu now has a 36% damage amp and 36% damage less taken. So you can make hopefully some really powerful Gadgeting builds that'll be worth carrying the Poppy and the Lulu around, or make the emblem actually worth taking. The emblem itself activates the trait, so like you can put that on somebody and get some really powerful benefits there. So that should be fun. Laser Core, this is one that honestly we ended up reworking this before it got really popular, but we wanted to make it a little easier to play. Specifically because the gap from 3 to 6 was very wide. You needed 2 4 costs. So now it's a 3, 5, 7, 9 instead. So now if you can get an augment or just hit the Zed or the Sejuani, you'll be able to get that going. In addition, it didn't really feel like there were enough lasers shooting around. We wanted Laser Core to, kind of live up to the name and be about lasers. So now instead of it being a 50% chance to proc, it's always procking. But the damage has obviously gone down quite a bit here. So you see it went from like 65 to 25. This is also meant to be a little bit of a nerf compared to live, because honestly, Laser Core is overperforming. But generally the idea here is Laser Core should be easier to play, feel a bit more fun, and be a tiny bit less powerful. Oxforce, run through these. Oxforce is basically we're just kind of addressing a lame pain point, which is like if you're playing Thrill of the Hunt or Anima Squad, you would get them down to their 1 HP, and then they had this self-inflicted 1 HP damage that would kill themselves, which meant you didn't get credit. So now that's going away. You'll be able to deal the final blow and get credit. It actually is a bit of an Oxforce buff, because now you do need to do an extra hit to kill them, but that's about it. And then finally, Underground. This is probably the change I'm most excited for, and is honestly a little risky. Underground is fun, but pretty hard to play. You have to play around 3, usually cash out at Heist 2, but then you kind of get out of it, and it's really hard to go from 3 to 5. So we're making it easier to play. Now it's a 3, 4, 5, and if you get the Augment, you can go all the way up to 6. 6 can do some pretty crazy things, and so you can see here you get a lot more locks per win and loss. If you can pull off 6 Underground, hopefully you get some great YouTubers and have some fun with that. So again, the goal here is make these traits more fun and more accessible. So there you go. Alex, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I've been excited for these, especially the Gadgetina and Laser Core. Personally, I know they've been sitting. We've had them on PB for a while just because we haven't been able to get them out to live, just because of localization changes. But just playing around with these have been so fun. So I'm very excited for Laser Core in particular. I think it's going to be in a much healthier state, and hopefully will be a lot easier for players to kind of meld into that trait a little bit easier without that weird, like you talked about, those four costs making it really tricky to really get online.
Yep. Cool. All right, on the champion side, there's not a lot this patch because, again, the meta is actually in a pretty good spot here. So Lux continues to be a champion that people really struggle to make work. She's probably the least popular 2-star 1 cost. And don't get me wrong, there's probably some deeper work to do here around targeting, things like that. But for now, we're going to let her cast more often. And again, she's a Star Guardian, so maybe this will help her get some of those key spell targets and do some good damage. Fiora underperforming just a little bit. We want to make sure that she really is a tanky option for both Duelists and Oxforce, so giving her just a little bit more armor and MR. And you'll notice, by the way, all of these buffs are very minor. We're not trying to swing the meta pretty heavily here. Jinx, same thing, a champion that's meant to be a good item carrier for Misfortune, do pretty well, and get you those Anima Squad stacks early. Just underperforming a little bit, so we're going to give her 10 less mana so she can cast a little bit more often. And then finally, Jax. Shout out to Clear. Kind of pointed out a really awkward thing with Jax in that his base spell damage didn't scale with AP. And so what this meant is, like, you put a death cap on Jax, instead of getting that like 70% damage amp from the spell, you're actually getting like 13% at first. It really wasn't very good. This is actually a pretty big buff too, because if you're playing Mech Jax, Mech provides a lot of AP. Jax wasn't really benefiting from that. Now he will. So this should hopefully be the buff Jax needs to stay pretty healthy, but actually be a bit more powerful. Any thoughts?
I'm just excited for the Jinx. She's been one of my favorite champs for whatever reason this set. So her coming more and more vital has been a blast for me personally. So that's my only thought.
Cool. All right. And then on the 4 and 5 cost side, Talia just tiny bit underperforming. We're talking the tiniest of margins here compared to the other 4 costs. So we're going with a 5% buff. Very minor here, but should bring Talia up in line with all of the other 4 costs that are doing very well, like Belveth, Zed, Samira, things like that. Viego, we're basically fixing a bug. Sometimes you've seen Viego's spell would just fizzle. A big cause of this is that the damage was being done around him, and the location wasn't being updated properly. So now the damage will be around his target, and he should always be able to hit. So that should be a pretty big buff to Viego to make that work. And to be honest, we're only nerfing him a tiny bit here. It's a very microscopic nerf to just his AoE. So hopefully this makes Viego more consistent and behave the way he should. So that, again, helps Viego. And then finally, Janna. Janna has had a bug in the game for a while where basically her spell was only doing 20% of the intended damage. Now, most people don't play Janna for her spell damage. You were playing her for Forecaster or Spell Slinger activation. So it wasn't really too big a deal, but we're fixing that now. But obviously we can't let Janna just have a ×5 multiplier on her spell. So we're bringing down that spell damage. And so you can see here the actual spell damage is going up quite a bit, right? At 2-star, it goes from 30 to 75. So pretty big buff there. We're also buffing the 5-cost version spell stun. So if you ever get a 3-star Janna, cool. And then Windy has secretly, or not so secretly, has been a very powerful version of Forecaster, probably too powerful. And so Windy is finally getting that nerf that it needs. So Windy will be a little bit more balanced. Still good. I imagine people are still going to play Windy Janny. And then finally a 5-star or 3-star nerf to Just Sunny because it was giving 4,000 health shield, which kind of made it unbeatable. So bringing that down to 2,000. Again, we want 3-star 5 cost to be like 99.9% likely to win, not 100. And so that's kind of hitting that goal here.
I think out of this, I'm keeping my eye on that Viego. I think having him being more consistent, he's already been like a pretty solid 4 cost, so I'm excited to see what he looks like at full power without that fizzling, hopefully, as much.
Yep. All right, now we get to the meat. Actually, no, one more quick slide here. Items. Infinity Force now gains 25 mana and 25% crit chance. So now it actually has all 8 core stats on it. Looks pretty cool. And then Thieves' Gloves just made some adjustments to some of the drops that items have changed, and didn't make as much sense anymore. Things that used to pair well together don't pair well together anymore. So just some updates to some of the pairings that you can see in Thieves' Gloves. Generally, it's a very tiny buff, but again, only if you hit those exact specific options. So cool. All right, now the meat. A lot of augment changes here. So I'm going to try to run through these quickly and summarize them. Ancient Archives and Ancient Archives 2 both underperforming a little bit, so we're going to give them some gold to make them more worthwhile. Birthday Present overperforming a bit. It doesn't need to give 1 gold per level up, so it's going to get a bit of a nerf there. Clear Mind, Cluttered Mind, Hustler, and March of Progress are all very good augments that are overperforming a bit. Not Cluttered Mind, we'll get to that in a second. But so the way we're going to nerf them is actually have them not give XP on PvE rounds. So this will all make it basically they lose about 1/6 of their effectiveness. That should be a healthy nerf to bring them down. In addition, it does a nice cool thing like on Clear Mind, for example, now you can pick up the orbs and not be worried about accidentally deactivating Clear Mind. You can deal with that, and so that's a nice side effect. Now, Cluttered Mind was actually underperforming, though, but we wanted the rules to be consistent, so it wouldn't make sense to just nerf Cluttered Mind. So we're also buffing Cluttered Mind by giving it back the 4 random 1 costs, so you can get that bench full right away and get that effect going. And then beyond that, we did a pass on some of the items. We still have more to do here, but you can see here Brawler Crown, Heart Crown, Mecha Prime Crown, etc. All these items have been changed, and you can see here if they're intended to be a buff or a nerf. A lot of them are intended to be slight nerfs, though some of them you could debate. For example, Prankster Crown going from Edge of Night to Morello. Edge of Night did some really cool things on dropping aggro. Morello works really well with Zoe, so they're not like massive nerfs or anything, but they are intended to specifically nerf these augments a bit. Personally, I'm excited for Underground Soul to have a Zerat portal. Gives them extra time, and hopefully you preserve that health in the early game. And then finally, Pandora's Items has been re-enabled. We fixed the bugs with that, so we can bring back that silver augment that players enjoyed. So that augment is back. So that's just the core augments. Alex, any thoughts?
No, I'm really excited about these, especially Cluttered Mind. I think that's one of those just like player favorites where they love seeing it. It makes you think about the game a little bit differently. So happy to see that one get a little love. And with Underground, I think that was the one that brought up. I was like, who do I put Gunblade on with
Yep.
this? So I'm excited to see Zerat in there.
Yep. All right, hero augments. So as we said, there's going to be a big burden on the live team, and this will continue. But to make sure that there's a bunch of hero augments worth taking, so that there are a lot of viable choices. And so you're going to see a lot of buffs here, a couple nerfs as well, but generally trying to get the more balance. And this is going to be a big focus for us continuing moving forward. So Galio Carry, this is an augment that honestly probably needs a rework, but in the meantime, let's crank it up and see if someone can have some fun with it. Gangplank Carry, this one gets a buff. This is a very light buff, but to be honest, some challengers already think this is a very good augment. Its win rate is quite good if you can pull it off. So don't sleep on this augment. This one might be really good. Lux Support, 500 shield, especially in the early game, could really get you through the early game. So we're hoping this is a great like 2-1 option into like a fast 8 into a Talia comp or something like that. Renekton, same thing, bit of a buff here to try to make that Renekton carry a bit more of a dream. Silas, Kingslayer. This one's actually overperforming quite a bit. Not a lot of people picking it because Silas isn't a popular champion, but those who are and know how good it is an amazing augment. A little too good. So being able to force it with those 4 rerolls, we're going to bring it down just a little bit. Talon Carry, same thing, just a little overperforming, losing 10 AP, very minor nerf. Annie Carry, this is a really hard to use augment, and frankly is underperforming. So we're buffing it quite a bit here. 200 damage. I imagine this augment is going to be very good to Fast 8 and to Spellslinger. The amount of damage it can do now with a 0.1 internal cooldown when that spell is up is a lot of damage. So don't sleep on this one. If this still doesn't work, we'll probably rework the augment, but definitely a big buff here. Fiora Carry, again, if you need that front line for Ox Force or for Duelist, you should get this in. Should be extra armor and MR. Rel Carry, I love this augment personally, but it's just not living up to some of the other augments, and so we're making it less niche by buffing it up. 10 more AP, 5 more damage reduction. I think this is going to make Rel a beast, but we'll see. Jinx Carry, this is an augment that is really hard to use, but with the Jinx buff also should be better now, because now instead of having to get a kill to get any benefit, you will get 40% attack speed right off the bat, which is very good, and then tripled if you get the takedown. So hopefully this should make Jinx a rocket flinging machine. Lee Sin support, very minor buff here, but the extra attack speed, just extra duration, so you're more notice it and be pretty happy with it. Malphite carry, same thing. It's an augment that kind of underperforming, but we're going to crank it up a bit here. So if someone wants to try to make a Malphite carry dream work, I think there's going to be some options. I think when this works, it's going to be insane. So that'll be interesting. And then Misfortune support. So this obviously heavy rain on 3-2, or make it rain, excuse me, on 3-2 would have been way too good and is too good anyway. So now if you take it on 3-2, you will only get 10 gold the first time it procs, not 20. And then from there on, you'll get the 20 gold. So this should bring it down at 3-2 a little bit. Should still be desirable if you want to play a Misfortune comp, but maybe not the hard force it was before. Set support used to give a Locket, which felt a little weird because Set didn't really want Locket. Now it gives a Protector's Vow. Nunu carry, buffing that up just a little bit. And then finally Janna. This is an augment that got reworked because it really made no sense. And if we buffed it up, it would get really unhealthy with Janna spamming her spell. So now she has an augment called Category 5, which gives her 50 AP and makes her spell do true damage. So if you want to run like a 4 or 6 spell slinger Janna, cool. You could do some true damage spells, might be a fun version. And again, this is just some of the work. We'll continue this on in future patches, but this should hopefully bring more of the augments into balance.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a big sort of area of focus for us moving forward, is getting, more and more augments that you're excited to take. Like I think you mentioned the Galio carry one. Like at the moment, no one's excited to have Galio carry. Like this may make the difference, but if not, we're going to be really quick to rework and have new ideas because we want the widest swath of, cool options available for players. So really, really excited about these changes. And I think it's funny, when we were kind of going through all this, I was like, everyone's just going to take get paid, like it's so OP. And then when we saw this, you showed me the stats and we were like, oh, okay, maybe it's not as OP as we thought. So I think bringing up a lot of those things and, just adjusting kind of where our mindsets are of like what's actually strong or what's not will be really exciting to see once it's all live.
Yeah. The other thing to talk about too here is it's not just about stats, right? Like get paid is a great example. Even though the stats aren't amazing on it, it's just fun. It's a fun augment. And so it is also on us to make sure that a lot more of these are fun too. So hopefully we can deliver on that, and things like Category 5 lean into that, but we'll be continuing to make even more fun augments as we go. Cool. All right, now for the small stuff. Nothing too crazy here. Anima Squad underperforming just a little. Very often the way to play Anima Squad was play it in the early game, maybe go 5, 7 or whatever, but then later transition out of it. So we just want to not bait you, but like try to get you to play some of the vertical a little later. So just plus 5% to the AD and AP at 5 and 7. Brawler, same thing. Brawler's just kind of underperforming compared to some of the other front lines. So a minor buff at 4 and 6, just to help Brawler just a little bit. Again, just a nudge. And then Mascot, same thing. Mascot 4 and 6, just underperforming a little bit. So a small nudge to make it just a little tankier. Nothing too crazy here.
Yeah, I'm excited for this Anima Squad in particular. I see a lot of players trying to go full vertical, so I'm hoping this unlocks them to, really be excited about it and have that potential that they're really wanting.
Yep. On the champion side, Kale gets the smallest of buffs to help that underground a little bit. This is also to help the Kale carry augment. If you really want to play a Kale carry and invest in Kale, it should be worth it. You shouldn't notice this as a supporting unit in Duelist, but you should notice this if you decide to invest in Kale. Minor thing. Draven underperforming a little bit here. This might look like a big nerf because you're seeing 3 numbers change. I assure you it is a very tiny nerf. What we're basically doing is lowering the damage from his spell a little bit, each multiplier less than 5%, so that the spell won't scale off AD and AP from mech quite as much. Again, less than 5%. And then we're lowering his effective health, the armor and MR going from 20 to 15. It's basically a 4% nerf on effective health. So again, just making him a little squishier when you finally get into that Draven so that you can actually get the kill and take him down. But that's about it. So it looks scary, but it's actually not. It's a tiny nerf. And then Vel'Koz just updated the tooltip so that you can now see that he has this rule where he can't target again for 4 seconds.
one's actually a bigger win than it looks, because I think casual players just get so confused of like, what is my Vel'Koz doing? And I think this will just really help them be like, oh, I see, it can't, hit the MF twice in a row.
Yeah, exactly. All right, and that's all the big changes. So then we have the bug fixes. I'm going to slam through these super quick here. Echo attack speed slow no longer affects units protected from CC with things like Quicksilver and Verdant Veil. Fixed typos and things like League of Draven Augment, admin start of combat variants, Lux's spell tooltip. Ezreal support augment no longer says grants 0 gold. Got that fixed. Fixed an issue where Jack would receive an AP bonus from things like Fiddlesticks or Spellweaver emblem and just stop attacking. So that's been fixed. Fixed a bug where 2 of the golden egg drops were missing an intended tactician's crown. So yes, that basically means egg buffs. So definitely take golden egg every time it's offered. It has no flaws. Improve the clarity of various tooltips, including Star Guardian, Admin, Anima Squad, Prankster, Spellslinger, and Sure Shot. Again, we'll be continuing to improve tooltips as you see them. Fixed a bug where Nunu's augments were labeled backwards. The carry was the support and the support was the carry. That's now fixed and is correct. Fixed a bug where Samira's spell would sometimes choose illegal targets. This should have been gotten out sooner. Sorry about that, but the bug is finally fixed and quashed. So Samira should be consistent just like Viego. And then finally, here was a weird one we caught at the end. But Omnivamp now applies consistency regardless of the source. Affected sources are things like Hacker, Siphoning Winds, Partners in Crime, and Celestial Blessing. Basically, there were weird cases where, for example, they would work with things like Laser Core or Static Shiv that they weren't intended to. That has been fixed, and so now all Omnivamp across the board behaves the same way. So there you go. That's our bug fixes.
We just have to give a shout out to the team with all the stuff going on. It's been awesome that they've even been able to get all these bugs and everything in. So I just want to give a shout out to all the folks that have worked really hard internally to get this to players really, really quickly.
Yep. So yeah, that's going to do it for 13.3. Again, not a lot of champion changes, just buffing up a few of the lower end, as we saw, like things like Lux and Jinx. The big thing here is obviously the augment reroll and how much that's going to affect the game. So we'll see how that goes and then be adjusting from there. But hopefully this should be a good, healthy kind of shakeup where it doesn't change how you play the game, maybe just changes the kind of augments and hopefully lets you find things that you find fun and can lean into. So if you watch your favorite streamer play something like a really cool duelist comp and you're like, I can't wait to try that, you can log in and hopefully in a reasonable amount of games get to try it out and let us know what you think. So yeah, any closing thoughts from you, Alex?
No, I think that's about it. Yeah, I mean, as always, let us know what you think. Mort and I are really excited about this change. We talked about many different variants of it for the augments, but as always, we are just here to make the game more fun and more exciting. So I'm excited to hear all the cool comps that you're able to get even easier this time. To be hype.
Yeah. All right. Well, enjoy, and we can't wait for this. The patch should go live for you on Wednesday. And so, yeah. All right. That's going to do it from us. Until next time, take it easy.
Later.